When you cut off contact with a woman, it shakes her world in ways you might not even realize. And the truth is, how she reacts isn't just about her feelings for you. It's about her understanding of your value, your presence, and the energy you brought into her life. Men often underestimate the silent power of absence. They think communication is what maintains attraction. They believe constant reassurance, chasing, or checking in is what keeps her interested. But here's the hard truth. When you disappear, when you stop giving her that access to you, something profound starts happening inside her mind and emotions. If you've ever wondered what a woman truly feels when you stop contacting her, then listen closely, because this message is going to change the way you see yourself, your relationships, and the way women respond to your energy. Before we dive in, I want you to remember something. This isn't about playing childish games. This isn't about manipulation or some shallow dating tactic. This is about reclaiming your masculine power, your self-respect, and your ability to operate from a place of strength. What I'm about to share with you is rooted in ancient wisdom, modern psychology, and the lived reality of countless men who either gained respect by stepping back or lost everything by smothering, chasing, and begging for attention. Now, if you're serious about becoming the kind of man who not only understands women but also commands respect without having to plead for it, then make sure you subscribe right now. Because what we do here is strip away the lies you've been fed and get straight to the truth about relationships, masculinity, and the mindset that actually gives you the upper hand. I want you to keep an open mind as we go forward. Some of what I say will feel uncomfortable. It might even sting. But discomfort is where transformation happens. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, let go of your ego for a moment, accept that there are lessons you still need to learn, and you'll come out stronger on the other side. So let's talk about what really happens when you stop contacting her. 1. Her mind becomes louder than your words. The first thing you need to understand is that silence is not empty. Silence is full. When you stop contacting a woman, her mind doesn't go blank. It starts running wild. She replays every interaction, every word you said, every expression on your face. She tries to decode your absence. Is he mad at me? Is he moving on? Did I lose him? Did I push too far? Is he with someone else? That silence forces her to confront her own feelings in a way your constant presence never could. This is where the Stoics understood something powerful. Control what you can control, and let go of what you can't. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that other people's actions are outside his control. But here's the twist. When you remove your presence, you're forcing her to deal with that truth. She cannot control you. She cannot dictate your time, your energy, or your responses. She has to sit with the uncertainty. And uncertainty is what breeds attraction. Now, this doesn't mean every woman will react the same way. Some women might feel relief if they never valued you in the first place. But if you meant something to her, if you played a significant role in her life, your absence is not neutral. It's a disruption. A woman may act like she's fine, post smiling pictures online, or brag about how much fun she's having. But deep down, she feels that void. And the more she tries to fill it with distractions, the louder that silence becomes. Let me give you an example. Imagine two men. The first one gets anxious, the second a woman doesn't text back. He floods her phone with messages, asks if she's mad, and keeps pressing for reassurance. The second man, when faced with the same silence, leans back. He doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He knows his value isn't determined by her immediate response. Which one do you think she respects more? Which one stays in her mind longer? Exactly. The man who understands the power of silence. Now ask yourself this. Are you comfortable enough with yourself to let silence do the work for you? Or are you so dependent on her validation that you can't sit with that space? Because here's the truth. If you're afraid of her silence, she will never be afraid of losing your presence. This is where self-mastery comes in. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Brave men are not afraid of quiet, not afraid of losing someone who doesn't recognize their worth. When you stop contacting her, it's not about punishing her. It's about standing firm in who you are. It's about showing that your life moves with or without her. And when she realizes that, it forces her to reevaluate the balance of power in the relationship. 2. Absence makes her measure your value. Here's the second thing that happens when you stop contacting her. She begins to measure the true weight of your presence. You see, human beings are wired to take things for granted. When something or someone is always available, we start assuming it will always be there. The Stoics understood this. That's why Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that everything he loved could be gone tomorrow. Not because he was pessimistic, but because he understood that appreciation grows when we recognize impermanence. When you stop contacting a woman, she suddenly has to confront what life feels like without you in it. She has to measure the gap. And whether she admits it out loud or not, she will notice the difference. That doesn't mean she will run back immediately, begging for you. But it does mean you've shifted the frame. You've forced her to see your presence as something valuable, not something guaranteed. Think about it this way. Imagine drinking the same coffee every morning. You don't think twice about it. It's just part of your routine. But one day, it's gone. No explanation, no backup. Suddenly, you're aware of just how much that simple coffee shaped your morning mood. That's what happens when you remove yourself from her daily routine. She starts realizing the emotional caffeine you provided, the comfort, the excitement, the energy. And the absence of it makes her question her own choices. Now, some men fear this moment because they think, what if she doesn't care? But here's the real question you should ask. Why would you want to keep pouring into someone who doesn't notice when you stop? Isn't that in itself the answer you've been avoiding? A woman who values you will not be indifferent to your silence. She may act strong. She may even try to flip the script and ignore you back. But inside, she feels that measurement happening. She is weighing your presence, and that process alone often deepens her respect for you. Modern men often get trapped in the cycle of overgiving. They bombard her with attention, with texts, with reassurance, thinking that the more they give, the more she'll value them. But that's not how human psychology works. Value is rarely appreciated in abundance. It's appreciated in scarcity. Diamonds are valuable not because they're everywhere, but because they're rare. And when you stop contacting her, you're reminding her that you are not cheap, not replaceable, not just another man in her inbox. Here's the deeper Stoic truth. Control the supply of yourself. Epictetus taught that freedom comes when you stop desiring the things outside your control. And that includes her constant approval. When you stop needing to be in her face every second, you reclaim freedom. And paradoxically, that freedom makes her more drawn to you. So let me leave you with a question here. Do you want to be the man she tolerates because you're always around, or the man she values because she knows your presence isn't guaranteed? When you step back, when you stop contacting her, you're not losing power, you're gaining it. You're shifting the focus back onto yourself, onto your mission, onto your growth. And by doing that, you force her to measure just how much you really meant to her. That measurement is where respect begins. 3. Her ego takes the first hit. Let's be brutally honest. In today's world, many women are used to men chasing them, Social media has given them constant validation at their fingertips. A simple photo, and hundreds of men are in her DMs, telling her how beautiful she is. In that environment, your attention becomes just one of many. She expects it. She counts on it. She assumes it will never stop. So when you remove it, when you stop contacting her, her ego feels the sting before her heart does. This is not about cruelty. It's about reality. The ego is that part of her that says, I can have him whenever I want. It's that quiet arrogance that makes her believe you'll always be there waiting. But when you step back, when you show her that her beauty, her charm, her games don't keep you glued to your phone, you challenge that belief. You create a crack in her self-image. Suddenly she's not as sure. Suddenly she wonders, wait, maybe I don't have the grip on him I thought I did. And this moment is powerful, because in relationships, the person with less fear of loss usually has more control. If she believes you can't walk away, she has no reason to treat you as a priority. But if you show her, through your silence, that you can and will focus on your own life, she has to respect that. The Stoics spoke often about ego, but not in the modern self-help sense. For them, ego wasn't about pride, it was about illusion. Epictetus reminded his students that most suffering comes not from reality, but from the stories we tell ourselves about reality. Your silence disrupts her story. The story that says, he'll always come running back. The story that says, I'm the prize, he's the pursuer. Without that story, her ego feels unsettled. Now here's where you must be careful. Many men break the silence too early because they get scared when she acts unfazed. They panic when she posts a happy picture or seems to be moving on. But remember, the ego often masks vulnerability. She may appear unaffected, but deep down, she's wrestling with questions she never expected to face. Here's the question for you. Are you willing to endure the discomfort of not knowing so that she can feel the discomfort of realizing she doesn't own you? Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Her reaction, her posts, her behavior, these are outside events. Don't break your frame to chase after illusions. Hold steady. Let her ego take the hit. It's the first step toward her seeing you as a man she cannot take for granted. 4. Her emotions swing like a pendulum. Once her ego is unsettled, something fascinating begins to happen. Her emotions start moving in extremes. At first, she may feel anger. How dare he ignore me? Who does he think he is? That anger is a defense mechanism. It's easier to be angry at you than to admit she misses you. But then, that anger softens into curiosity. Why hasn't he called? Is he really that busy? Does he not care? And if you hold your ground long enough, curiosity often turns into longing. This emotional pendulum is not random. It's psychology. When someone feels a sense of loss or uncertainty, the mind tries to balance itself out by swinging between opposites. One moment, she convinces herself she doesn't care. The next, she wonders why you're not blowing up her phone. This back and forth is exhausting for her, but it keeps you on her mind constantly. And that's the point. Silence forces her to invest emotionally in ways your words never could. Think about how this relates to Stoic philosophy. Seneca wrote about how the mind exaggerates things in both directions. He said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." In her imagination, your silence becomes bigger than it is. She fills in the gaps with stories, with fears, with fantasies. And the longer you hold that silence, the more powerful her imagination becomes. Here's a real-life example. A man I once counseled had been in a toxic cycle with a woman who constantly belittled him, ignored his efforts, and only reached out when she wanted something. When he finally stopped contacting her, she initially mocked him, saying, "You'll be back." But as weeks went by, her tone changed. First, she was irritated. Then, she started sending casual check-ins. Finally, she admitted, "I don't know why, but I keep thinking about you." That's the pendulum effect. Her emotions had to swing to the opposite extreme before she realized his absence mattered. Now, let me challenge you with this question. Are you patient enough to let her emotions swing without rushing in to rescue her? Or are you so desperate for validation that you'll interrupt the very process that could have restored her respect for you? Remember, masculinity isn't about reacting to every mood she has. It's about holding your frame, letting her experience her emotions without needing to control them. Your silence is not punishment, it's a boundary. And that boundary allows her to feel the full spectrum of her own emotions. 5. She tests the waters to pull you back. Eventually, after the ego hit and the emotional swings, many women will do something predictable. They'll test you. She might send a casual text, something small, something nonchalant. "Hey, how are you?" Or, "Just saw something that reminded me of you." Don't be fooled. This isn't always about genuine care. Sometimes it's about checking if she still has you in her grip. If you respond too eagerly, if you rush back in with paragraphs of attention, she knows you never really left. She learns that your silence was just a performance, not a reflection of true strength. But if you remain calm, measured, and composed, she feels the difference. She sees that you're not a puppet on her string. This is where Stoicism becomes more than theory. It becomes practice. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Her test is what happens. Your reaction is where your power lies. If you respond with neediness, you undo everything your silence built. If you respond with composure, you confirm the truth. You are a man who doesn't bend at the first sign of attention. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore her forever. It means you respond on your terms, from your center, without rushing to give away your power. A short, calm reply communicates more strength than a desperate outpouring of words. A man who has options, who is grounded in himself, doesn't drop everything for a breadcrumb of attention. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a king sitting on his throne. Someone enters his court and throws him a casual remark. Does the king jump up, scramble, and shower them with gratitude? Number. He listens, he considers, and he responds with the weight of someone who knows his value. That's how you must be. Your silence has already set the stage. Now your composure seals the respect. Here's the question I want you to sit with. When she tests you, will you prove that your silence was a facade, or will you show her that it was simply the natural expression of a man who doesn't need anyone's approval to feel whole? This is where modern men often fail. They get excited just to be noticed again, and they sell themselves cheap. But a man who understands his worth doesn't flinch. He doesn't rush. He doesn't hand over the power he earned through discipline. And when she feels that, when she realizes you're not so easily pulled back, her respect for you deepens. 6. You rediscover your center. Too many men lose themselves in relationships. They get so wrapped up in a woman's approval that they forget who they were before she entered their life. They stop pursuing their purpose. They stop investing in their friendships. They stop building themselves physically, mentally, spiritually. And then they wonder why she lost respect for them. It's because she no longer saw the man she was first attracted to. She saw a watered-down version who made her the center of his universe. When you stop contacting her, you create space. And in that space, something incredible can happen. You start hearing your own voice again. You remember what you enjoy outside of her. You reconnect with your mission. You strengthen your discipline. Suddenly, the silence is not about waiting for her response. It's about filling your life with things that make you powerful, independent, and unshakable. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders to himself to stay grounded, because even an emperor could be distracted by the noise of others. If the most powerful man in the world needed to guard his center, how much more do you? Your silence becomes a training ground. It forces you to detach from the need for validation. It teaches you to find satisfaction within yourself. Think of it this way. If your silence only makes you anxious, restless, and desperate to break it, then you're still a prisoner. But if your silence gives you peace, if it reminds you of your strength, then you've broken free. Seneca said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned to be a slave." In the same way, he who has learned to be silent has unlearned to be needy. Ask yourself this: who are you without her? If tomorrow she never returned your call, if she moved on completely, what would remain? Would you still be a man worth respecting? Would you still be pursuing something greater than her attention? Or would you collapse, lost without her presence? This is the true gift of silence. It forces you to answer those questions honestly. And once you do, you either rebuild yourself into a man of strength, or you realize you were never as strong as you thought. Either way, you grow. 7. She sees the man she cannot control. At the end of this process, something becomes crystal clear to her. You are not a man she can mold, manipulate, or manage at will. You are not just another name in her phone, waiting for her to decide when to respond. You are a man with boundaries, with purpose, with self-respect, and whether she admits it or not, that makes her feel something she doesn't feel with most men: respect. Women don't respect men they can control. They may enjoy the attention, they may use the convenience, but deep down, they crave the presence of a man who cannot be bent by their moods. A man who knows his worth so deeply that he doesn't need to prove it with constant pursuit. When you stop contacting her and stay firm, she sees that man. This doesn't guarantee she'll come back. Some women won't. Some relationships end for a reason. But that's not the point. The point is that by standing in your power, by embracing silence, you reveal your true nature, not just to her, but to yourself. And the kind of man who can hold that line is the kind of man who will attract better, healthier, more respectful relationships in the future. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's what this is all about. Stop arguing, stop pleading, stop chasing. Just be the man who doesn't crumble when a woman pulls back. Be the man who doesn't lose himself in her approval. Be the man who stands tall in silence and lets the world adjust to him. Here's the final question I'll leave you with. Do you want to be remembered as the man who begged for her attention, or the man who walked with such dignity that his absence spoke louder than any words ever could? At the end of the day, when you stop contacting a woman, you're not just shifting her emotions, you're reclaiming your own power. Her ego feels the sting, her emotions swing. She tests you, and she eventually sees the man who cannot be controlled. But the most important part of this process is what happens inside you. You rediscover your center. You remember your worth. You become stronger, calmer, and more disciplined. And that transformation is priceless. The hardest truth is also the most freeing one. You do not need her attention to validate your existence. You do not need her approval to define your worth. When you stop contacting her, you remind her of that truth. But more importantly, you remind yourself. So let this be your wake-up call. Be the man who can embrace silence. Be the man whose presence is felt even in absence. And if you want more raw, real advice like this, Make sure you subscribe right now, because I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm here to help you take your power back. I'll see you in the next one.